Sir, could you please explain S cube balance and balance cube, sir? Are they two different terminologies, and what is the difference between those two?
Sorry, what is the question? S cube and
S cube and balance cubes. I was just seeing on the internet. It seems to be two different terms, no, sir?
no. Actually, S base is the database which uses this balances to store. So we call this balances as an cubical values. So that is the difference. But we don't have two different things. But two different things we have is
Okay.
that we have Fusion application database and the S-based database. So difference is
Okay.
that this S-based database is used only to store the GL balances. So if you understand this R12, so where we have the balances which comes from the subledger modules, and it will be stored in our GL balance, that is GL repository. So from there we will derive all those reports, financial reports, P&L or balance sheet report, whatever it is. So for this purpose, what we have is that S-based database. So this S-based database is used for an better reporting where the data can be retrieved in a cubical value. Whichever way we want, we can derive it. Maybe I'll try to get the access for it. So I'll give an like walkthrough so that we will see
Okay.
the end of the session. So maybe you will also have the idea what is S-based and how it works and all those things.
Okay, sir.
The
Thank you, sir.
last session, if you see, after we complete our GL configuration, that is submitting our accounting configuration, you will see a concurrent program running for this cube generation. So how basically system will work is that once you complete this ledger configuration, system will create a cube for this particular ledger. So whenever we are doing a transaction against this ledger, system will create a queue so that whenever we want to get a report out of it, it will be ease of doing. And we don't need much of a technical knowledge. If you have a basic understanding of the system, we can create our own report. So that is the main purpose of SPS database. And the cubical balance is nothing but the value which we are saying. So that is the primary difference.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else?
That's it, sir. I mean,
Okay, fine. So maybe we will try to start with AP configurations. So I'll just display the steps that what we will do in AP configuration. So these are the steps which involves to complete our AP configuration. So as I said earlier that this is role-based access control. So for example, if you see in R12, you don't have any control to give access to create supplier or supplier site. So if I have the access, I mean the menus and the submenus attached to my responsibility, I can create it. But here in Fusion, it is little different. The different in the sense why Oracle has segregated is that they want to segregate implementation user and employee user. So in the first session, we saw that there is a two kind of user. One is implementation user and the other is employee user. So basically implementation user will do only the setup and configuration, where the roles and responsibilities will end only on the functional setup manager, FSM. So apart from that, the implementation user cannot do any kind of transaction. That is strictly avoided. And we have the employee user. So employee user is the actual user who will handle the system or who will do day-to-day transaction. So here we are speaking about employee user. So who is employee user? So basically, if I wanted to create an invoice or if I wanted to make a payment, I need a role, specific role for this. So I'm an employee user. So this is basic understanding. So now we have the supplier. supplier and supplier side. Supplier can be created, but supplier side cannot be created. The reason being is that it will be created only by the employee user. So in R12, we call this as an buyer. So here it is just a term change. Basically, it is a procurement agent. So procurement agent is the one who books the purchase order, who books the, requisition, and who receives the item, and he will create the supplier site and all those functions. So this is what we call the procurement agent's roles and responsibilities. And we have this LGD, Legislative Data Group. So if you remember from our first session, I was speaking about the legal employer, and I was speaking about the business group where we can create multiple business groups in R12, but in Fusion system will not allow us to have the multiple enterprise. So for us to have it, we need to have the LGD, that is Legislative Data Group. So this is based on each country. So that we have to assign to a particular legal entity to enable us to create as an employee user. So we will see each functions, how it goes and everything in system. I'm just giving a heads up. And another new concept that we have in Fusion is that reference data set. So basically, what is reference data set? So reference data set is nothing but grouping a particular setup to enable for a multiple business unit. For example, we have this payment term. So if we want to use this payment term for a multiple business unit, we don't want to create it again and again. So instead, what we will do is like we will create an reference data set, and we will attach this reference data set to multiple business unit, so that it will minimize our development efforts. So that is what RDS in specific. And we have basically and restriction. So basically we have common RDS, and we have a BU specific RDS. So common RDS is predefined by Oracle. So where we can utilize the already available RDS, and we can set up the payment terms like the 30 days and immediate. All those things are already available. So we can just use that and put that into our RDS, that is specific RDS, and we can use this. So these are the primary new changes that we have it in a Fusion application. So apart from that, mostly we can understand if we go through this R12 environment. So I'll just log into the system. So here the first step is to create a business unit. So what is business unit? So business unit is nothing but an operating unit. We call it in R12. And what is this business unit? Business unit is basically an location or an office or a branch where we will do sort of expense or and revenue. So that we call as a business unit. So navigation to this is, we will click financials and common application configurations, and we go to define business unit, and we go manage business unit. I click add. So I'm just giving HWBU. And manager and everything is optional. If you want to use it, we can use. And even location, this is optional. If you want to have, we can have. I'm just clicking one code. And this is what I was saying, RDS, reference data set. So if you see here, it is based on, I mean, different users are selected for different.
வாட்ஸ்அப் ஓப்பன் பண்ணு.
So this is where we define reference data set. So I'm just giving HW RDS.
அடுத்தது வீடியோ. வீடியோ தான்ப்பா. Sure. Hmm.
Okay, so we have created our business unit. So what is that next step that we will do is assign a business unit with the functions. So basically what is function? So function is what as a day-to-day activity we will do. So how system understands that if I do a particular transaction from this business unit, the transaction should be placed or sent to a particular ledger or a legal entity. Basically it is a ledger. So this is where we define. If you see here, you will find it the financial reporting. So whatever transaction we are making it, so it will be sent to this particular ledger. Since we have only one legal entity, system has automatically picked default legal entity. If we have 4 or 5 legal entity for an given ledger, we can choose from the list. So from here we can choose. The reason we are saying only one is that we have only one legal entity. So what is function now? So we have customer payment. Customer payment is nothing but we sold a particular amount of goods to the customer and we are receiving the amount, the outstanding dues from the customer. So for that we have a function called customer payments. And then we have expense management. So let's say there is an case that you travel somewhere to maybe on site for some implementation purpose or some other purpose where you can reimburse the expenses that you incurred. So that basically we will have a particular login. So you will be created as an employee, and from there we can raise and request, and the expense will be approved from the given manager. So this we call expense management. And then we have the payables invoicing. Payable invoicing is nothing but creating an invoice in the accounts payable, where we have to pay to the vendor, and payable payments similarly. And other functions are like we have billing and revenue management, and we have collection management, and we have procurement related, we have project related, we have sales related. So we are not handling the supply chain or the procurement part. So we are handling only the payables and receivables. So I'm selecting these 4 functions. So here one thing that we need to note is that since we are having it as a practice, we can use only 4. But in a real-time scenario, if you wanted to implement, let's say, project accounting, and we decide that we will select it later because we might divide into different phases. So in the first phase, let's decide that we will implement financial, and second phase we will implement procurement, and the final phase we will implement the project accounting. So if we are implementing this phase, we cannot decide that I'll include or enable this project accounting function at a later time. We can enable it, but system will not have effect on it, where we will not be able to see the project accounting access given to the user. So whatever the access we wanted to give, we have to give at a first click. So if we miss this option, then maybe we need to do again from the scratch. So that is the reason we should be little cautious here while giving the business unit functions. So since we are handling only the financial part, I just given the 4 functions, and I have selected the primary ledger and I have selected the legal entity, so that the transaction I make it here will be sent to this primary ledger. So I'm just saving this. I think different is selected.
No, I mean class. See? Class.
Okay, you better what all you're going to spend the 1,000 in my birthday.
Okay, go. We'll speak later.
Okay. So since I have changed from the earlier business unit that was assigned to this implementation, so that is AKBU, and now I have changed it to HWBU. So you can see here the scope. So it is our understanding that we are working for this particular business unit. And here you can see that it is assigned to FIN implementation user. So we have assigned the business unit functions to the user. So the next step is to create LGD. So LGD I have created it already. I'll just explain what it is and how it works.
Like பண்ணல subscribe பண்ணல. ஒரு மெசேஜ் அனுப்பு நீ தனியா.
So here you can see, so this is a simple column where we say this is an legal legislative data group, and we have given it, and as I said, this is the country. So the moment we select the country, automatically currency will be selected.
யாரு அர்ச்சனாவா? என்னன்ட்டு?
So you can see here, maybe I'll try to change the country.
This is like legal entity, yeah?
No, this is different actually. So we have so basically in our tool we have business group where for a different country we can create different business group. But whereas in Fusion the system will not allow us to create different enterprise. So for that purpose, what we can do is like we have this legislative data group. So this acts like an business group where for an different countries we have the different legislative data group. So based on this, we can create the legal entities under this, and we can attach this as a legal employer to maintain our employees and all those things.
Okay.
So if you see here, I have selected United Kingdom. The moment I select this, automatically the currency has changed. So since I have opted in ledger level as an US currency, I'm just going with the same United States.
Auntie, I am good. Magnus, every income.
So if you have, mostly we will not have more than 10 or 15. If at all we have a big list that maybe some big companies work in maybe 50 plus countries. So maybe at that cases we can go for the spreadsheet. So spreadsheet is basically a similar action where we will fill it and we will upload it. So that is the option, but this option we will use it very rarely. So we have created legislative data group. So now the next step is to assign the LDG to legal entity. So we will click manage legal entity at same information. So if you remember, while creating the general ledger model, we defined our legal entity. So while defining the legal entity, we also inform the system that this will act also as a legal employer. So legal employer is nothing but a payroll statutory unit or something we call where employee can be worked under a particular unit. So since we don't wanted to give a specific BU or operating unit to be given for this legal employer, we utilized our legal entity. So we have created the LDG, that is legislative data group, and we have attached to this legal entity, that is HW, and we are just submitting it. Okay, so we have assigned LDG to LE. So the next step is to create employee user. So we give manage user.
These are all like profile option, huh? In article.
Manage user.
Huh.
No, this is not. I mean, this is the way we create employee user. So basically here
Creation
we
of supplier. Okay. Yeah, please.
yeah. Here actually the profile option and all those things were limited. I mean, very few cases we will use profile option in Fusion application. So mostly it is handled through roles and responsibilities and access and customizing the roles. But restricting with the profile option, it is very limited compared to Artful. So I'm just giving name and I give mail ID. So the reason why they have given this mail ID is that let's say if we wanted to reset the password, we can simply click forget password and the password link will be sent to our mail ID. So that is the purpose of this. So I have linked my credentials, that is FIN IMPL, and this is where we will choose our employee. If you see here, the list is different because system has considered this as an implementation user or a normal user without any business functions. So the moment I click employee, the fields will change. So if you see here, we will see the legal employer. So this is what I was saying when we are creating this legal entity. So after creating the legal entity, we wanted to have legislative data group as well assigned to a particular legal employer. If it is not assigned, system will throw an error that this is not an legislative data group. So we have assigned it and I'm just querying our legal entity. And I'm querying our business group. And we have job, grade, department, location, and this thing. So this comes under basically the HCM, the human capital management, where they have the job and the grade and department to process the payroll process and other employee managements. So we are not taking that since that is not a mandatory setup. And I have given the business unit and the legal employer. So I'll just save. So ours has created. That is Arun. This is our mail ID which we used. So person has created. That is employee has created. So next step is to create a procurement agent. So manage procurement agent. So we click this and let's change the BU since the system has taken different BU.
சேட் பண்ணுவேன்னு சொல்றாங்க அப்புறமா. ஏய் இதுல தண்ணி இருக்கா? பிளாக் பாட்டில் தண்ணி இருக்கா?
So I click add and I'm just adding the procurement agent. So I give the BU.